December 11th, 2008. A 70-year-old man sits in his Manhattan penthouse and tells his two sons the truth. For nearly 40 years, he had been running the largest financial fraud in human history. No real trades, no real returns, no real investments. Just one gigantic lie. $65 billion vanished. Thousands of lives destroyed. This is the case file of Bernard Lawrence Madoff. Bernie Madoff was not born into wealth. He grew up in Queens, New York, the son of a plumber, a working-class kid with a hunger that nobody around him could quite understand. In 1960, at just 22 years old, Madoff started his own investment firm, with $5,000 he had saved from working as a lifeguard and installing sprinkler systems. He called it Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities. What no one knew then was that this small Manhattan office would one day become the engine of the largest Ponzi scheme ever built. But here's what makes Madoff different from every other conman. He didn't lurk in the shadows. He didn't hide. He helped build modern Wall Street. Madoff was one of the early pioneers of electronic trading. He helped found the Nasdaq stock market and eventually served as its chairman. He was respected, trusted, untouchable. The kind of man you wanted managing your money. Which is exactly what made him so dangerous. By the 1980s, Bernie Madoff had become the man every wealthy investor wanted to know. Hollywood directors, hedge fund titans, charities, pension funds, Holocaust survivors, universities, royal families, they all gave him their money. Why? Because Madoff promised something nobody else could deliver. Steady returns, year after year, 10, 12, sometimes 15%, no matter what the market did. When stocks crashed in 1987, Madoff's clients made money. When the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, Madoff's clients made money. When 9/11 sent markets into freefall, Madoff's clients made money. It was, quite literally, too good to be true. But people didn't ask questions, because asking questions might mean being kicked out of the club. And here's the genius of Madoff's con. He didn't beg for clients. He turned them away. Investors had to be referred, vetted, approved. Getting into a Madoff fund became a status symbol, like being invited to a private dinner at the White House. And while everyone was fighting to get in, Bernie Madoff was running nothing more than a glorified shell game. A Ponzi scheme is one of the oldest cons in history. It's named after Charles Ponzi, an Italian swindler from the 1920s. The concept is simple. You take money from new investors and you use it to pay fake returns to your old investors. No real product, no real trades, no real growth. Just one big circular flow of cash. Every Ponzi scheme eventually collapses, because eventually new money stops coming in fast enough to pay off the old. Most Ponzi schemes last a few months, maybe a few years. Bernie Madoff's lasted nearly 40. How? Two reasons. First, his returns were modest enough to feel believable. He didn't promise 80%, he promised 12. Boring, steady, bank-like. And second, he had a separate, secret floor of his Manhattan office, the 17th floor. While the legitimate trading business operated upstairs, downstairs, a small team led by his right-hand man, Frank DiPascali, manufactured fake account statements, forged trade tickets, phony returns. Computers were programmed to spit out perfectly believable monthly reports that referred to trades that never actually happened. For decades, no auditor caught it. Not because it was sophisticated, but because nobody looked. Here's the part of the Madoff story that should make every regulator hang their head in shame. A financial analyst named Harry Makopoulos figured out the entire fraud in 1999, 9 years before the collapse. Makopoulos was working for a competing investment firm. His boss asked him to study Madoff's strategy and replicate it. Makopoulos sat down with the math. Within minutes, he knew. The numbers were impossible. The trades Madoff claimed to be making did not exist in the volumes he claimed. The returns could not be produced by the strategy he described. Makopoulos went to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Not once, not twice. 5 separate times, between 2000 and 2008, he submitted detailed reports, including a 21-page memo bluntly titled, "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud." The SEC opened investigations and closed them. Madoff was too prominent, too well-connected, too respected to be guilty. The agency would later admit they had every piece of evidence they needed and missed it. While the SEC ignored the warnings, Madoff stole another $20 billion. By the fall of 2008, the world was on fire. The financial crisis was wiping out banks. Lehman Brothers had collapsed. Wall Street was in panic. And Madoff's investors, terrified, started doing what Ponzi schemers fear most. They asked for their money back. $7 billion in withdrawal requests came in over a few short weeks. Madoff didn't have it. He never did. On December 10, 2008, Madoff called his 2 sons, Mark and Andrew, into his apartment. He told them the truth. The entire business was, in his own words, one big lie. His sons turned him in to the FBI that night. The next morning, federal agents knocked on Madoff's door. He was arrested in his bathrobe. One of the most respected men in American finance, handcuffed in his own foyer. The lie was over. The damage Bernie Madoff caused cannot be measured in dollars alone. Charities shut down. Pension funds vanished. Holocaust survivors who had entrusted him with their life savings lost everything. One investor, the French aristocrat René Thierry Magon de la Villuché, lost more than $1 billion of his clients' money. 2 weeks after Madoff's arrest, he took his own life. Madoff's older son, Mark, never recovered from the betrayal. On the 2nd anniversary of his father's arrest, Mark Madoff hanged himself in his apartment, while his 2-year-old son slept in the next room. In June 2009, Bernie Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in federal prison, the maximum allowable. The judge called it extraordinarily evil. Madoff died behind bars in April 2021. He was 82 years old. Of the $65 billion investors believed they had, only about $14 billion has ever been recovered. The rest is gone.